Good afternoon and welcome to the Midday News. Here's what we have in the bulletin.
Reactions to the release of long-awaited housing and population census results. Education Ministry reports major improvements in Grade 4 PEP exam. And later in sports, Mobe Sports Complex development still in limbo.
Thank you for joining us. I'm Kerry-Ann Simpson. Here are the details. Local stakeholders have mixed views about the latest housing and population census. After a 3-year delay, the data released by the Statistical Institute of Jamaica show that more Jamaicans are living on the island today compared to when the last census was done over a decade ago. Antonia Atkinson has our first story.
The sharp decline in the number of babies being born has sparked the most concern among stakeholders, given what it could mean for the country's future development. The report puts Jamaica's population at 2,774,538. Speaking on the morning agenda on Poro 106, development economist Dr. Christopher Stokes said the figures were not surprising, noting that the trends align with global patterns of declining birth rates.
There are domestic considerations for growth, but there are also concerns for the global economy.
However, not everyone is convinced about the accuracy of the data. Former Education Minister Ronald Thwaite has raised questions about how reliable the census results really are.
I find the census overall suspect. I certainly, and nobody I know was had census taken up from them. Certainly in the Western culture, which we are part of, there has been a dramatic shift over 3 generations, where people prize what they call self-actualization, and they opt for accretion of material goods and credentials over the establishment of a family.
In the meantime, Director General of Stating Leisha Dalata-Badir has affirmed the credibility of the data.
So this census in particular was geo-referenced, and what that means is that we can identify where we collected the data and where we did not collect the data. And because it was geo-referenced, we were able to, like I said, estimate where we had undercoverage. In response to the undercoverage, we implemented this model-based estimation that used data from geospatial images, so satellite imagery, administrative data, a suite of data sources that we would have put together, as well as looking at the data that we actually collected and using that information to estimate where we did not collect.
She adds that the population is growing, but at a slower rate.
Over several decades, what we have been seeing in each round of censuses since the 1970s is that the growth rate of the population has been declining, which means that we are growing, but at a slower rate. Now, there are 3 factors that impact population growth. One is births, the other is deaths, and the second is net migration.
Antonia Atkinson, TVJ News.
And staying with matters related to the population, one local leader is warning that the survival of global society depends on restoring equality, justice, and stronger social protections. Former PSOJ President Howard Mitchell says governments are increasingly unable to address the widening disparities within their populations. This, coupled with the neglect of essential social services, has left millions without access to the basic supports needed to live. Now, this, he says, is a threat to democracy.
Absence of a strong family structure in a society such as ours, it is we who must show by example, by involvement, by interference, and yes, by volunteering, that the values that must abide with us are the values of caring, of love, of consideration for others, and of peaceful dialogue rather than physical violence.
Mr. Mitchell argues that urgent action is needed to restore balance and preserve democratic values.
This cannot be done by staying home. It must be done by interaction through our churches, our schools, our hospitals, our centers, in the streets, in the shops.
He warns that if governments fail to act, the growing divide between profit and people could push the global community into deeper crisis. He was speaking at the Louis Grant Medical Center's 40th anniversary held recently. The Ministry of Education is reporting major improvements in literacy and numeracy scores among grade 4 students in the latest primary exit profile PEP exams. The 2025 PEP grade 4 results show 70.4% mastery in numeracy and 67% in literacy, with only 475 of the more than 33,000 students at the non-mastery level. Education Minister Dr. Dana Morris-Dixon says this year's results are welcome gains.
About students' performance in PEP grade 4 assessments. 67% of all students sitting the grade 4 PEP are now at mastery in literacy, and 70.4% have achieved mastery in numeracy. This year's results show significant gains in both literacy and numeracy across Jamaica's schools. And I am so proud of our children, our teachers and principals, and our parents. These results reflect the extraordinary work being done every day by our teachers, principals, literacy coordinators, and of course our students.
Now, among the initiatives driving improvements are the National School Intervention Plan, targeted coaching for teachers, and holiday learning camps aimed at strengthening literacy and numeracy skills. Dr. Dixon says the ministry will also continue to hold school-based data review sessions and share best practices from top-performing schools.
Are proof that our education transformation agenda is working. As minister, I'm very proud. When we invest in our teachers and support our students early, we lay the foundation for lifelong success. There is absolutely more work to be done. Our goal remains full literacy and numeracy for every Jamaican child, regardless of their background or circumstance.
Works Minister Robert Morgan said plans are well advanced to fix the Montpelier to Montego Bay Road in St. James. The minister gave the update while on a tour of the Montego Bay Perimeter Road on Wednesday.
It's a multi-million-dollar project, hundreds of millions of dollars, to improve the circumstances of people in Montpelier and surrounding areas. As with every development, there will be challenges, and the challenge is that we've had to dig up the road to lay the pipes. The challenge is that while we have dug up the road, the rains have come, which has delayed the project.
Mr. Morgan said the ministry has been in dialogue with JSIF for several months about the situation. He acknowledged the frustration of residents, including those who recently blocked the road to demand improvements. The minister gave this assurance.
We will fix the Montpelier Road. That's a commitment that you have from me as the minister with responsibility and from the Prime Minister. It is not something that you have to force us to do. It is something that was planned long ago. We could never dig up Montpelier Road and not fix it back. So for those who are saying that it is advocacy that has caused us to plan to fix the road, no. We plan our projects.
The St. James Health Department says it is ready for the flu season. The flu season, which normally starts in October, usually affects high-risk groups, which include children, the elderly, and individuals with chronic illnesses. Speaking at the recent meeting of the St. James Municipal Corporation monthly meeting, medical officer at the St. James Public Health Services, Dr. Francine Phillips-Kelly, said vaccines will be available later this month.
I would encourage that those persons, especially in the vulnerable population, access when available. In our last flu season, which ended in May 2025, we would have isolated several strains of influenza across our country and in our parish, so alert to be maintained.
Dr. Phillips Kelly is also reminding individuals traveling to the Central Caribbean or South America that there is still an outbreak of the yellow fever in those regions, and therefore precaution must be taken.
Vaccine continues to be available, so anyone visiting the endemic areas, it is recommended that you come to the St. James Health Services on Creek Street and get your yellow fever vaccine at least 10 days to 2 weeks before going into those areas.
Councillor for the Yalas Division in St. Thomas, John Lee, is expressing grave dissatisfaction over poor sanitation and infrequent garbage collection in the town's square. He is calling on the National Solid Waste Management Authority to implement a plan for regular commercial garbage collection.
Getting information, we don't have anyone from solid waste doing commercial collecting. So you find out that the business people within the space of Yalas, in the nights, they would tip a young person, dispose of garbage. Rather than for them to find a proper skip, they would utilize right at that space that I construct that sanitary convenience.
He also noted that the Yalas Restoration Park, completed nearly 3 years ago, is still without a water connection from the NWC.
This morning I want to ask the new CEO to please follow up with the finance department that is of concern in regards to how the facility will be operated in terms of funds, which is a cause of the backlog or the holdback in regards to the document that's supposed to submit to the NWC in terms of the connection.
As a result, residents have no access to proper bathroom facilities and are forced to relieve themselves in public, creating serious health risks.
Everybody come there, sir, and use the bathroom, and go there, and stand up here, so them please. There's nowhere of the place where you can find a place there. Dentist there right there, sir, and them still are people. I see all the rubbish all that throw up on the people and fence. It don't look good.
We need street lights. The cry of the councillor for the Rocky Point Division in Clarendon, Winston Mirage. The councillor argues many parts of the parish are in darkness because the lights are either not working or absent entirely. Mr. Mirage, who is also the president of the Association of Local Government Authorities of Jamaica, ALGA-J, says he wrote to the Jamaica Public Service JPS about the issue.
We have a number of streetlights that are out, and the JPS people have been very tardy in repairing the street lamps whenever they get the communications. And of course, I know that councillors have been reporting non-functioning street lights to the various offices of the JPS.
Mr. Mirage says the situation underscores the need for more reliable lighting, especially in crime areas.
It is alleged that some JPS workmen came in to put up some new meter boxes, and meter boxes are placed in the communities that have the RAMI system that JPS has in some communities. And the workmen themselves refuse to reconnect the street lamps in the community of Rocky Point. And so the entire community is in darkness. And that's a community that from time to time will flare up for various reasons with violence. And so the residents of Rocky Point are very concerned and fear for their lives.
Now, in response, the JPS's communications manager, Audrey Williams, says the situation is partly caused by a high incidence of theft in street lights in the parish, but reassures customers that the company is working with local authorities to improve the situation. The government has already made it clear it won't renew JPS's all-island license under the current terms when it expires in 2027. It is now time for a break, but stay with us. More stories when we return. Welcome back to the Midday News. It is now time for the Business Minute. Agriculture, Fisheries and Mining Minister Floyd Green says the Alpart Alumina Refinery in St. Elizabeth remains a national priority. He also stressed that as a result, discussions are currently taking place with stakeholders to facilitate a phased reopening of the plant. Minister Green also revealed that the plant will be modernized and aligned with the latest environmental standards. Further afield, Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent says the federal government shutdown is slowing the U.S. economy. His department estimates the impact is about $15 billion a week. The congressional impasse is dragging on, with one lawmaker predicting it will go beyond Thanksgiving. The Federal Reserve Chair says he's starting to worry the shutdown will make it harder for the Fed to do its job. Many experts say the tariffs are starting to put pressure on the U.S. economy even before the shutdown. And that's it for the Business Minute. Time now for the top regional and international stories.
In the region, the Caribbean Court of Justice has dismissed an appeal by St. Lucia's opposition leader Alan Chastanet, who challenged the withdrawal of a customs case against Deputy Prime Minister Dr. Ernest Hilaire. The CCJ ruled that there was no evidence the Director of Public Prosecutions had taken over the case before it was withdrawn, saying the Controller of Customs acted within the law once the magistrate granted leave. The court criticized the case for wasting judicial time, calling the challenge legally misconceived. And on the international scene, hackers appear to have breached the public address systems at 4 airports in North America. On Tuesday, travelers heard unauthorized messages with expletives that praised Hamas and attacked President Donald Trump, along with Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. The messages played in the Harrisburg International Airport in Pennsylvania, Kelowna and Victoria International Airports in British Columbia, and Windsor International Airport in Ontario. U.S. Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy said the FAA is working with the Harrisburg Airport to investigate. And those were the top regional and international stories. I'm Aliyah Bryant.
Thank you, Alia, and we now head to a quick break. When we come back, we'll have your Midday Sports Report.